Manifestation Pod. We are Louise and Sam, two ordinary mums living extraordinary lives through friendship, self-improvement, manifestation, the law of attraction, and a little bit of the magic. We look forward to you joining us on our fortnightly podcast.
Hello, welcome to the Manifestation Pod. We have a very exciting episode because we today are joined by Lisa Sykes, the No BS coach for life and business for heart-led entrepreneurs, which is super exciting. Hi, Lisa.
Hello, my love. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. I'm so good. I'm so happy to have you here. For anyone who knows me knows how much I love coaching. Coaching has given a lot to my life. Coaching is how I started my charity. It's how I got out of my last awful job that I had. So truly, truly believe in the beauty and magic of coaching. So it's very exciting to have you here. And I thought I'd just start by saying a little bit how I came across Lisa. I was just saying to her before I joined, I feel like we're really good friends because of the community that she creates online. But I think I found you through Faye Jahan actually online. I was following Faye when she was doing all the human design stuff, and she's such a beautiful, beautiful spiritual leader, I would say, isn't she? And that's how I came across you online.
Oh, I love Faye. Been working with Faye for a long time actually now. It must be coming up for 2 years since we first started working together. Yeah, she's an absolute diamond, isn't she?
Oh, she is. She's awesome. She really is. So yeah, as the Manifestation Pod is all about law of attraction and money mindset, we just thought it would be amazing to get you on, Lisa, and hear about your money mindset, where it's come from to begin with would be awesome. What's your kind of backstory to money mindset?
So I think, it's funny because people talk about money mindset and like, even though I think a lot of people really understand what we mean by money mindset, I don't even feel like money mindset is even a thing. For me anyway, like it's about life mindset, really. Do you know what I mean? I think who we are anywhere is who we are everywhere, and how we relate to you're just in relationship with everything constantly, right? You're in relationship with yourself, you're in relationship, with people around us. We think of relationships as like human being things, don't we? But you're continually relating to everything, and that includes money. So for me, money, I don't really see it as money mindset. I see it as my relationship with money.
That's so interesting.
That's interesting. So can you define that a bit more, Lisa?
Like I say, I also don't believe you can think your way out of things. I think your body is very much a part of this as well. Your nervous system is part of it. You can think all the things you want to think in the world. If your body and your nervous system ain't on board, it ain't happening. So there's that part to it. But like from my perspective, if we try and think of like backstory stuff, I suppose, where do I start? Like I left school at 15. And the narrative, really, the societal narrative, and this really connects in with relationships and so on. Your relationship with yourself is, we go down a certain route, don't we? Like, basically, we're born, we go to school. Some people go to university. Some people don't go to university. That defines what you're going to do as a job. That defines how much you're going to earn money-wise, because we live in a system where everything is outdated essentially, because basically value is attributed and worth is attributed to things that we can weigh and measure. And yet you cannot weigh and measure. Well, in this day and age anyway, you can't weigh and measure half of the jobs that people are doing. We don't live in an industrialized society anymore, but we still have, let's go back to the word mindset, an industrialized mindset to what value is and what things are worth. It's all about tangibles.
Yeah.
You see things in tangibles. What do you do? So what do you do? That's the question, isn't it? No one asks you about who you are, what you like, what your interests are. You go to a social thing and it's what do you do? and you're ranked by what you do. And your worth is defined by what you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I left school at 15, if I'd have listened to, excuse me, the narratives that were out there about what was achievable for me, it certainly wouldn't have been anything around making a lot of money, because money is attributed to skills and tangibles come with qualifications and status and all of that stuff. So, God, you know, we could be here for hours, but basically I come from a family of disruptors, and I'm so glad that I do. My mum and dad decided that they were not going down the path that was kind of laid out for them, shall we say. They both came from pretty poor backgrounds, and my dad from a really neglected background. And they broke that cycle and were like, just because that's how it looks, you know, generationally for me, and that's the societal narrative and that's a patriarchal narrative of what's available for somebody like me, don't mean that that's where I'm going. It doesn't mean that that's where I have to go. So for me at 15, leaving school on a whim, you know, I'm glad that I didn't believe those things, that my worth was attributed to my, you know, my actual tangible contribution, that my worth was just unquestionable. My worth, you can't, there's not enough money out there to put on my worth. Literally, none of us here. So that led me to be somebody who decided that they would just put themselves in spaces that were probably reserved for people on paper that were not me. And that meant that by the time I was, 19, I had a job that was for a graduate, you know, and I didn't even have 5 GCSEs. I were being paid the same money that people that had university degrees and, you know, all of that stuff. So my mindset, money mindset, is really a life mindset. It starts there, and it really starts with not allowing money or narratives to dictate what I can and can't do, really. And then that comes into this idea of a relationship as well.
Yeah. God, I just love all of that.
That's really,
yeah, the disruptors, like a family of disruptors. That's just awesome.
Yeah.
You know, what a brilliant like background and you know, way of life to show you that you can disrupt the system and make your own path.
Totally.
Like that's just,
if you'd have looked on paper at my mum and dad, they shouldn't have ended up where they ended up at all. My dad left school at 15, ended up running the biggest ambulance service outside of London. You know, my mum were a senior social worker and so on. You know, they retired early. They did really well for themselves. If we bring it back round to money and so on, they shouldn't have had all the things that they had from where they came from either. But it's a life mindset rather than a money mindset, because who you are anywhere is who you are everywhere. You can't just go, right, I'm going to be like that around that thing and like that about that around that thing. Your relationships and your way of relating to things are formed when you're like under 5 years old. And that will be including your relationship with money. The things that you've seen people talk about money, the way that other people have explained money to you or not, the way that they've talked about money. If you imagine money as another person, what are the things that people told you about money? Doesn't grow on trees, can't always trust it to be there, need to keep hold of it, save it for a rainy day. All of these things influence the way that you feel about money and how you relate to money.
Yeah, it's all very negative, isn't it? We've literally just talked about this, about a kind of negative narrative around money and not the positives. If people talk more about the positives, it will be easier to have a positive relationship with it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and that who you are anywhere is who you are everywhere. Like we've just been talking about the shadow work that I've had to do to break through some of those money blocks that I've been having, and so that phrase of because there's still parts of my life that I'm still working on, that I'm not being who I am in, and that's where you get blocked, and that's where you get stuck, and that's where it gets really hard because you're so out of alignment in some areas of your life. And I think I'm doing a lot of work on that, so that really resonates.
Yeah, definitely. I always just think if you can start to think about it as something that you're in relationship with, and to speak to and treat money like it's another person, just like consider that for a second. So if money were another person and you were, let's just talk about something simple like paying your bills. And you pay your bills begrudgingly, and that's money. And you're like, go on over there, you know, go on, fine, whatever, on your way. Like, would if that was a person, do you think they'd want to be around you? Probably not. They feel like they were just some sort of something to be used and then like sent off kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
Or if you were somebody who like it burns an hole in your pocket, you know, it's in and straight out again. You're basically rejecting it, aren't you? You're like, it's not safe to hang around with me. Just go, disappear kind of thing. Or if you're somebody that's like hoarding money rather than like circulating it and stuff, it's like you've basically got it locked up in a box. You know, we've got them locked up down in the cellar, basically, and they're not allowed to go anywhere because you don't trust them to ever come back again. And that's why I always think, look at it through the lens of it's a relationship, because you're in relationship with everything. But what you often notice is whatever, you will have a style of relationship. You will have a style of being in relationship with everything. You will either and what we want is to be in a secure relationship with everything, have a secure attachment to everything. If you think about it in parenting terms, you know, but often what you see is some people are quite anxious about money because they actually have learned relationships through an anxious lens. Or some people are avoidant, head in the sand about it because they don't trust it. And some people are more secure, you know, and some people are chaotic as well and disorganized. It's a relationship. It's a relationship. And what we want is not necessarily to say any of those are bad or wrong, but to try and come back to a place of security and balance around it, you know, because it's not the money that's the problem. It's you. Sorry, it's as simple as that. Money is literally, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I could feel it coming then, and I was like, I don't know if I swear on this one.
Good. Yeah.
It's fucking numbers.
Yeah.
It's numbers. It is literally numbers. It is literally numbers. The thing at either side of the numbers is the thing that's valuable, not the money. Yeah. And we give all the power to the money. We give all the power to numbers. It's just a way of exchanging things of value. You are the value. You're the value, or the thing that you want is the thing of value. And we give all our power away to money. Everything will be all right once I've got more money. No, it won't. You'll still be the same.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I know that from personal experience. And I do money coaching, working with clients, you're right. In fact, when you've got more money, and this is definitely from personal experience, if you've got less money, you tend to do more with it because you've got less of it and you want to use it for good things. Whereas when you've got a complete abundance of money, you don't care about it as much. You don't think about it.
Disagree entirely. Disagree
Really?
entirely. Disagree. And that is why you will stay without money. That you've just told me exactly why you will never have an abundance of money, because that would make you the bad guy.
You need to explain that, then, Lisa.
People who have too much money, they don't care. They don't care about what they do with the money, is what you were saying.
No, I think I didn't care about what I did with it when I had more, because I thought it's there, it's never going away. I can do anything with it. And I became a little bit complacent, I think, whereas I wasn't complacent up until that point.
But you don't want to be that person. Why would you want to be somebody who's complacent, doesn't care about money? And money ain't going to want to be in relationship with that person either, is it? If you want to look it through it that lens, and all these stories about potentially, and you're obviously connecting that to an actual personal experience, which makes it even more potent.
Yeah.
Where you go next, because you've got a physical recollection and a coded within you of, and now you look at that past version of you that you, if I listen to it right, probably you think that past version of you didn't do it right, didn't get it right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You've not made peace with that past version of you. They're not integrated as somebody that you can be compassionate towards. Why would you want to be like that person again? You are never, people talk about money blocks. Like, I don't really like the words money blocks, because I don't see it. That's just me. I don't see it like that. But yes, there are like different like obstacles to overcome in terms of like bringing yourself to a place where you've got a more secure relationship around money and your self-worth, because that's what we're talking about. Value, self-worth, money, it all comes into the same thing. But ultimately, any of these narratives that we've been told, or we've told ourselves, and we've experienced ourselves, we are going to protect ourselves from that. This is where I'm talking about the body and the nervous system, yeah? So if there's a part of you that says, yeah, because I know when I had money previously, maybe I didn't manage it well, or I didn't handle it well, or I didn't care, or I was frivolous, which is another patriarchal bullshit word. No, all the people that are being told that they're being frivolous and have to be careful what they do with the money and all the rest of it are basically women. Nobody's worried about men being frivolous, taking risks, all that kind of thing. But you will keep yourself safe. We will keep ourselves safe for the things that we don't want to be, right? That we've seen or we've experienced. So I'll give you my version of that, right? One of the breakthroughs that I had recently was around risk. So one of my nicknames is Las Vegas Lisa. Las Vegas Lisa. I'm willing to give things a go. I'm really not afraid of failing. I'll give it a risk. I'll give things a go that seem risky and so on. And that's why I've got where I've got. But I was doing some of my own work kind of thing. One of the things that came up in this session that I did, and it was a somatic session, because like I say, I really believe that your body is your nervous system is so crucial in this. You can think. If you don't connect it to what's going on in your body, you will only get so far. And I realised in this like little breakthrough moment, I was like, my granddad on my dad's side was an alcoholic and a gambler. And basically, if you want drinking the money, we were pissing it up against the wall. And he also was not a nice person. He was physically, emotionally abusive to his 10 kids, including my dad. And in this breakthrough, I realised that if I'm to continue on my journey of entrepreneurship, I will need to take risks. And I was like, I can see him in me. I was like, but what if it's not that I am taking, how do we say, like almost like calculated risks and mindful risks that are not just throw it all on black, which also I'm not averse to as well. Like I say, Las Vegas Lisa, I do like a little gamble. But there was a part of me that was thinking, you taking risk like that makes you like him. And I do not ever want to be somebody that is like that. Never. And so what I realized was I'm actually keeping myself, by many people's standards, sorry, my phone's just doing something. Many people's standards, I am a risk taker. But I could take even more risk and get myself even further along in terms of my growth, my wealth, and all of those things. But there was a deep down part that I had not realized was saying, but don't do that because you'll be like him. Don't do that. That means you'll be like that person. We don't want to be the bad guy. We don't want to be the bad guy. And that's why when people have heard things like, it's tough at the top, money can't buy you happiness. All of these narratives, these are the things that internally we will be like, well, why? I'm going to keep myself at a place where I feel safe, where I feel like, okay, maybe I can get to a place of enough, just enough, maybe a little bit more than enough. But to push past there, there's a chance that I can go into the realms of the person who doesn't care about money, who makes bad mistakes, who makes bad choices about money, isn't responsible with money, all of those things. And we don't want to be that person. No one wants to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think for me, there's definitely something there about that, because a lot of my values are tied up to money. And I think the worst period of my life was when I had more money than I've ever had. So and I do know that. And I said in a previous podcast that I've got something that I need to break through, because I can feel that holds me back. And I do know that. How you do it, I'm not quite there yet, but that's obviously something I've got to work through. But yeah, there's definitely something about that. And I do tie the two together, and it's about separating that, because I'm also a very, very different person. I didn't have a child then. I think naturally you're a lot more selfish when you don't have kids. You're allowed to be. And now I'm not, because I've got a child, and I am a very different person. So even if I had all the money in the world, I know I'd never get back to that person, because that person's gone. She's long gone. But there's obviously some, you don't like the word block, but there is some block there stopping me moving forward. So that's really interesting.
It's at a cellular level, darling. That's why. It's at a physical cellular level, and that's why you can't think your way out of it. You will
I feel it. I can physically feel it.
I feel like that energy, don't you? You know, when you start bringing that, like, even when you just bring that time to mind, or that version of you to mind, you start to feel like a reaction within your nervous system, essentially.
Yeah.
You start to feel it, don't you? And that's how we know it's coded. The body is in charge. People think your brain's in charge. It ain't. Your body's in charge. Your nervous system's in charge. Story follows state. The state of your nervous system will dictate how you think. It will happen like that. Like that. In fact, it'll happen like you can't even see me click, because it's something that is happening. It's like a shift, you know, like when you have a perception that there's danger coming and you've not even seen or heard anything, and there's just a shift in the energy. It's undetectable to anybody else, but it's happening inside of you in less than the blink of an eye.
Yeah. And I can definitely feel that. And we've talked about that, me and Sam. I've definitely been on a journey the last few years where I'm trusting my gut instinct more. And when things don't resonate or they feel wrong, I can feel it. My body feels it before my mind feels it. And I'm really learning to trust that and just go with it now. And when things feel a bit uncomfortable, I kind of don't do them, because I know it's not for me.
Yeah. I think the trick is as well to, you know, with that, and this for me, you know, if you start to delve deeper into that, what I'm going to call like somatic part, the nervous system part, how this connects to your body, right, as well as the thoughts, because like I say, the thoughts happen because of the shifting state in your body. That's why when you talk about your gut instinct, your vagus nerve is your belly brain, basically. Yeah. You know, that's why there's so many like receptors down there, and you can feel it drop or you can feel it activate and so on. So the trick really is, as you start to really reconnect with that gut instinct that you're talking about, there's a subtle difference between, like you said, when I feel uncomfortable, I'm just like, you know, I need to listen to that, and you absolutely must. But what you need to do is to shift yourself back to a place of safety and then reassess the situation, because there's a very subtle difference. Like, you know, I'm going to say something obnoxious now again. As my dad would say, a gnat's knacker. Right?
I don't know what that means.
No, but a gnat is a tiny, like a flea. And obviously a knacker is a testicle. You can imagine the size of a tiny, tiny flea's testicle. It must be very, very tiny. So about a hair's breadth or something, you might say in proper English. But there's an absolutely tiny, tiny, tiny microscopic difference between the uncomfortable feeling of your gut instinct telling you, actually, you know, wait, let's reassess, and you feeling uncomfortable and just keeping yourself safe from anything that's actually going to help you grow. And that's where this knowledge, this understanding coming together of the nervous system and the thoughts will help you to differentiate that, you know, because if we just listen to our gut instinct, we'll never grow, because your gut instinct's job is just to keep you safe, isn't it? Yeah. So anything that's not what you're doing now, you're like, let's take it back to money again. Your situation now, you can survive. You can survive. The proof is all around you. You're alive. Everything's going well. Might not be what you want to thrive, might not be where you ultimately want to be, but as far as your nervous system's concerned, we know the program, everything works fine here, just stay still. Humans want homeostasis. They want it to be the same. And that will be the same with your money stuff. It knows, because, and again, let's circle back round to that version. You know on a cellular level that, obviously, I don't know the details, but I'm just going to like summarize. So forgive me if I use words that don't resonate, but you know that that time when you had an abundance of money was not a time that you felt safe, that you felt good, that you felt grounded in yourself. It wasn't a time that you felt happy or content or whatever it might be. Like I say, these are my words. I don't want to like impose them on your story at all. But
no, they're pretty good. Yeah, that's how I felt. I was really miserable.
Ultimately, yeah. So let's just use miserable to make it like easier in a word of yours. You know that that's the time, and this is, you've got big T trauma, as in like huge life events, like money trauma where people lose their house, lose their job, lose everything, or maybe they live in money trauma like my dad did, because I can see all his money blueprints playing out continually because of the actual poverty trauma that he experienced as well. And that plays out in his relationship with money. He doesn't trust it. He's got loads of it. He can't spend it quick enough, because it's better to change it into something that you can see and hold than these numbers that might disappear at any point or whatever. Let's make it something tangible. Let's buy a car. Let's buy your mum a bag. Let's do the. Then I can see where my money is. Where I like money where I can see it, kind of a thing. So you've got that like big trauma of like those kind of huge events that is registered in your nervous system. You are not going to do anything that even tingles that spider sense. It's going to go, no, we don't go there. That's not good. And then the small one is like you said, and again, I don't want to minimize it because it might have been big for you in that point as well. But let's just say a time when, like I think of my small T trauma as things like, getting towards the end of the month and not having enough money, and that being a cycle, let's say, when I was a single mom and I was reliant on benefits and things like that. There's a small T trauma to that. I knew I was okay, but it was that repetitive, is it going to be okay? Are we going to have enough to like meet our basic needs kind of stuff? That's imprinted in there as well. So if your time when you were miserable is imprinted in your DNA, which it is, facts, that it just is, whenever that little spider sense comes that you are moving towards potentially a similar situation, you're just going to move yourself away from it, because your brain's job is to keep you safe and your nervous system's in charge of that.
Wow, I feel like I'm having a counselling session.
So interesting.
This is why I don't like money blocks, because it sounds like it's your fault, and it is not your fault. None of this is your fault. None of it is our fault. You are not broken. You don't have blocks. You just have a well-functioning nervous system that's keeping you safe. What your job is to get it flexible, resilient, know that it can trust certain situations. And the way to do that is to notice it, understand it, start to disassociate from it, and write a new story.
And work on your nervous system to do
and
that.
that's by working on you. That's that, noticing it is that connecting it. Oh, actually, I can see that this is not just a mind thing. It's a mind-body connection. It's a whole thing. Understanding it is understanding how your nervous system works in relation to everything, but in relation to the money stories. Because once you know what your money blueprint is, once you understand that, you realize I'm not actually broken. I'm working pretty well here. What I need to do is work in a way where it's not just survival. It's an opportunity to thrive.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. That's a job for next week.
Life in general.
It is though, but like it is honestly, like I say, because you will notice if you zoom out, you will notice the traits of your the way that you relate to things will probably be the same across the board. You will either be, people are either, like I say, they might be avoidant of those things, and they're like going to kind of like, and this is on the nervous system, the freeze state, and they'll tend to like, disassociate. Oh, I can't be doing with that, head in the sand, whatever, I'll come back to it later kind of thing. Or be anxious and be very like, so somebody who's anxious with money is like constantly checking the bank account and like, oh my God, like what's it going to say? And all that kind of a thing. And like every not really knowing, maybe knowing absolutely every penny that's going in and out, and being like waiting for that day and or the avoidant one is like leaving everything to the last minute, and I don't even look at my bank account, and let's just pretend that's not all happening. And so there's all of that stuff coming into it, but it's all driven by your nervous system, and the nervous system is driven by your experiences that you've had that are coded in your DNA. Yeah. And let's just throw another little spanner in the works. You've got ancestral DNA in you. We're all sat here, and I think we all identify as female, right? Mm-hmm. We have an egg inside an ovary. We, egg upon egg upon egg, going back generations. We were inside our grandma, great grandma. I don't know how many it goes back. If your grandma, so like, let's take my example. My mum and dad are boomers, right? My mum was in a sort of like, not well off, but definitely not in the situation that my dad was. Mum said we were the first people to get a telly in the village. Everyone came around to watch the moon. Everyone came around and watched the moon landing. But like this generation before them were in the war, rationing, scarcity, like for real scarcity, that is trauma in their body, in their DNA. If we know that, and we know this scientifically, cortisol can impact a baby in utero. The stress of a mum when they're in a stressful situation is transferred into a baby. I'm going down my doula route for a second here. We know that, and there's science to back that up, that, taking care of someone's well-being, mental well-being, and lowering the stress levels and therefore cortisol levels when they're pregnant is important. Because it alters the DNA. It alters the DNA of the baby as it's growing and forming. We are eggs inside eggs.
Yeah.
All of that shit that's happened 2 to maybe 3 generations ago, definitely for women, is coded. Some of this shit that you're feeling in your nervous system, it ain't even yours.
Yeah, 100%. Like I've delved a little bit into that because you've probably seen that I started teaching yoga nidra, which is like the sleep of yoga. So it's like proper, deep meditation, relaxation, resetting of the nervous system. You can treat trauma with it like really gently. It's like really super special. And part of that, some of my meditations, I'm getting like messages from my ancestors now, like proper messages. And I've had this really strong one like all year that keeps coming up. There's certain times of the year when like the veil is pretty thin and the message comes really strong, and I keep getting this break the chains, keeps coming through massively. And I keep 9 generations of my family, like there's pictures on my desk now because I use them quite a bit and work with them of like, I'm doing it, I'm breaking the chains, like keep guiding me, keep giving me strength, because there's layers of rest that the women in my family generation have never, ever had. And I take this into my rest practice. Like I'm resting for those women now because I'm from like Irish Catholic poverty background on both sides. So there was no rest for anyone in those families. So I always take that into this practice. And I just think there's so much carrying with you and so much that you're working on to break through. That's all part of this, isn't it? It's all interlinked and so important.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's deep stuff.
Yeah.
Deep.
It is. It's like mic drop moments, isn't it? It's like silence. It's like, I need to think about that for a minute because it's mega.
It is, but like we just like as a society anyway, we are. So let's go back to like no one wants to be the bad guy and that kind of a thing. How how many narratives around, you know, it's vulgar to talk about money and all of that stuff have you heard over the years? You know, we don't talk about that. So there's so much shame linked with it as well.
Yeah.
You know, and as human beings, we don't want to feel that shame, because then that shame is like about rejection, and we don't want to feel rejected. No one wants to feel rejection anyway, but like on a very deep level, basic level, let's go back to the nervous system. Rejection means cast out from the community, the safe space, and so on. How do I survive? You know, all your brain just wants to keep you safe, and that includes, like, all it wants is your basic needs met. It doesn't give a shit about all the rest of it. It's just basic needs met. And so to do that, all you need to do is stay exactly where you are now, because your brain knows you can survive in this state. So there's always your brain. And when I say brain, I always include the nervous system in that, is always going to like create resistance. Going to create resistance, because it's like, I don't actually know that what's on the other side of that spider sense, that funny feeling, that gut instinct, that whatever it is, that we're going to survive it. So it's always going to try and keep bringing you back to where it knows. We know the program here. You know the program. You can survive here. The evidence is all around you. You've got your basic needs met. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Sorry, yeah, it does. Did law of attraction ever feature in your like journey or like understanding of anything? I'm really interested in that.
Absolutely. So like when I was so I told you, like, I left school at 15, but when I got married at 19, and I was a mum by the time I was 20. And when I was 18, when I was probably 17, 18, like, I was the only person in Halifax, because they used to order it in for me, to get Oprah Winfrey's magazine. You know, I'm 50 next year. And she was already talking about all this shit years ago, like years and years ago. So I used to get Oprah magazine, and The Secret was, you know, on her book list, you know, 30 years ago. How old is The Secret now? I don't even know.
No, it must be like a good
it's got to be. I remember getting it, you know, in paperback form and reading this book and stuff. And I actually remember thinking, I feel like I'm already doing this, like, because I'd been listening to so much stuff from Oprah and the people that she had on there and so on. And I was like, this like feels like me, like essentially, like, believe it, take the action steps, like attracts like, essentially. And that's how I'd gone from like no GCSEs to being in a graduate job by the time I was 17. I wasn't even old enough to go to university, basically, being flown up and down the country and so on in a male dominated, like, back then IT was completely male dominated. I ended up as a business analyst, basically. But yeah, I remember reading The Secret, and it was like, just start off by manifesting car parking spaces. Do you remember? I'm sure it says that in there, doesn't it? Or something. I haven't read it for a long, long time. And I used to do it. I used to go, I'm going to go on Commercial Street in Brighouse now, and you just watch that parking space right outside Merry England is going to be there for me. And I would like drive along, and boom, it'd be there. It'd be there. And I started with those like small things that they say. And I realized, you know, I realized really, really quickly, like, what you think, the vibration that you are on, the frequency that you are on, is what you will receive. And that is like I say, it's how I ended up with that job. And then further on down the line, when I went back after I'd had Emily, I just was like, put yourself in those situations where, like, believe that it's possible. Like, why wouldn't that work for me? Of course it would work. I mean, I'm always like, not what if it don't work. My mantra is like, what if it works? Why not? Kind of thing. And then the next news, I remember I worked in this really amazing team, and this job came up, and on paper it were like, you've got absolutely no chance. And I was like, yeah, but what if it works? What if it works? And even having the piss taken out of me, and I was like, yeah, but, you know, ask, believe, receive. Ask, believe, receive. I got that job as well, you know. And so I think for me though, you know, with manifesting and the law of attraction, it is, you know, I've said this before, manifesting is a verb. You do it. I don't like, you can't just like write shit down and, you know, like, oh, like, you know, sit there and light up that it's going to drop out of the sky, because it doesn't work like that. Manifesting for me is when the energy on the inside, the true beliefs on the inside match the actions on the outside.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a combination, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? So, but the closer your beliefs are, and then again, that comes back to how solid you are in terms of like your nervous system, as well as this part. Everyone thinks it's all in here. It's here. It's all in. I'm tapping my head now. Obviously, I just realised we're on a podcast, aren't we? Everyone thinks it's all in your Swede, but it literally runs from your head all the way down into your belly. It is in your body as well. It's a combination of things. So I totally, and that's, you know, that is how thoughts become things. You know, when they say thoughts become things, because you think it, when you think something, it impacts the way that you feel. And the way that you feel impacts the next steps that you take. And the next steps that you take impact your results, thoughts, things. That's the bit in between, except there's this little loop that goes round, because actually it's kind of feelings, as in sensations, that dictate the thoughts. Because if you're feeling unsafe, even if it's like only low level detected and you haven't even realized it, you are going to think protective thoughts rather than connective thoughts. You know, you're either going to go for protection or connection. Connection is that expansive, like energy that is going to move you towards and maybe make you feel like taking a risk on something. Protection is the contracted version. They're like, let's just be a little bit more, you know, the uncomfortable feelings and so on, where you're less likely to take a risk, you're less likely to give it a go, kind of thing. So that is literally how. And then if you think about it, if you have an internal feeling of, I'm not sure if this is going to work, the next thought is not going to be, let's go for it, I'm amazing, and let's put that thing out there, and the next thought is probably going to be, maybe I'll do it next week, or maybe I'll talk to someone else. And so you're going to slow down the action part, which is going to slow down your results, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or completely stop them in the tracks.
Totally. Yeah, it really is. I guess, yeah, it's interesting to get your thoughts on law of attraction, because I think Louise and I would say the same, that we think we've both naturally got that mindset. Like you said, when you started out, we both naturally had it, and then things happen over the years that kind of get in the way of it. And it's really like the last sort of year or two that we've come back to it and tuned back into it, and we're like, no, we're going to start taking the actions now, and you know, we're working on it together. And that's how this podcast came about, really, because like last October we were just like, this is why we're friends, this is why we were attracted to each other, because we both want to take action, make things better, different. We want to design our own lives. And we met when we were on maternity leave, so I think going back into the work system cut off where we were going with that, because we started like a little business on mat leave to design our rich life, and our little business was making these little patchwork quilts. It lasted a week, like we didn't go anywhere with it.
It wasn't a money maker, was it? But
no, it wasn't a money maker. But then I think we came off the maternity leave train and went back into the system, and it just took us away from that. And it's taken the kids being older and us both doing like more work on ourselves to be like, no, we need to get back to that. That is our true core, you know, who we are, what we want to do, what we want to be working on. So yeah, that's like where
I think what you said there is so like important in this conversation, because and it really like goes back around to what Lou said. Something changes also on a DNA level with us when we have children, right?
Yeah. And
money, our relationship with money is basically our relationship with responsibility.
Definitely.
Our relationship with being provided for and providing for.
Yeah.
You know? So it shifts on a genetic level, on an epigenetic level. which is why it's even more important to bring this part into the conversation, because you've now not just got all the previous positive as well, positive imprinting, as well as, you know, like more, I don't want to say negative, but like almost like the ones that are more protective, yeah? The ones that are going to like try and keep you safe, because like I say, there's nothing wrong with you, you're not broken. It's because your nervous system is working perfectly and doing its job. So if we can see that, like, we've changed on a DNA level because of our experiences and the imprints of the different, like, if we keep it with money experiences, money traumas, money highs, money lows, whatever they might be, it's undeniable that we also change in terms of our DNA, our nervous system when we become parents. Our spider senses are different, you know. We're not just looking at like the protection of ourselves, we're looking at the protection of our offspring for the continued, you know, procreation of humanity, essentially. It's as basic as that, you know. So with that in mind, and then when you think about money in a relationship, money is all about responsibility and providership. And when you throw a child into the mix at whatever age, we've now got a completely new lens on what responsibility means, because we're not just responsible for ourselves anymore, we're responsible for somebody else. So that starts to like come into the picture and muddy the waters as well. And the providership is like being provided for and then providing for someone else as well. So, you know, it doesn't surprise me. And in fact, it's not that it doesn't surprise me, it just stands to reason, doesn't it? That you can even see a delineation in like the things around like maybe setting up a business and like, you know, which involves some risk, entrepreneurship. Like the definition of entrepreneurship is taking greater than normal financial risk in business to create a profit. That's it. But now we're like, oh, risk feels different all of a sudden because I've got a new context around being provided for and providing for others, and a new context around responsibility. So it all starts like shift. It's this eternal shift that happens for people having babies, you know, for mums, like it can be a seismic shift.
Yeah, definitely was for me, because I'm quite a risk taker and was previously. And then I don't know, after you have a child, it's just too scary to be as risky, because you're not just risking, it feels irresponsible, I suppose, in certain situations. Yeah, interesting.
And can you see how, like, if you think about it, it feels irresponsible in certain situations? That kind of connects with my thing where I was saying, oh, like, am I effectively like, and I've got an extreme version because I've got, you know, a paternal grandparent who was an abusive alcoholic gambler. But am I seeing something there of me being irresponsible if I take risks at this point? Because, you know, what if that impacts the security of my family and my children and all of that? So that's that's this exact same thing that you're talking about. You know, I remember first time I got on an aeroplane after I became a mom, I just was racked. I would have sat on the wing. I would have sat on the wing before I had kids. You know, I would have been strapped on the front of it, loving life, jumping out of it, whatever. The first time I got on an aeroplane, after I'd had Emily, all I could think was, if I die, who's going to brush her hair properly? You know, who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? Because all of a sudden, the context completely different.
It's true. I remember doing Go 8 like a year after I had George, and I was like, I'm never doing anything like this again. Why am I throwing myself off a giant tree when I've got a baby at home? This is ridiculous. Exactly. I will not do things like this again. It's a real visceral moment for me, that of my risk perception at that time of like, I can't put myself in the way of physical harm when you've got someone to take care of.
Exactly. And if you think about it, it's the exact same nervous system response that is happening inside of you when you imagine putting yourself in financial risk as well, because that's what's being activated.
Yeah.
That's what's being activated.
Yeah. And I think with that as well, I went on a plane last year for the first time without my child. So she's 10, and it's taken me 10 years to go on a plane without her. Been on one with her, but without her was a whole different thing. And being in a different country to her, I wasn't happy about. But I think the financial risk for me, I feel like if anything went wrong, I would feel that guilty about it. Whereas if I'm on the plane and it crashes, it's not really my fault, is it? It's just that's happened. So yeah, I'm more comfortable with that dying in a plane crash than I am, losing money. Yeah,
It's crazy, isn't it, when you sort of really like unpack it like that.
yeah,
The the potential, if you can like approach financial risk, in whatever capacity that is, at whatever level that is, from a grounded space, there's more capacity to provide for you and your children when you lean into that.
yeah, absolutely. And I know this from experience. It's just that I was more risk happy previously, whereas
Yeah,
now I'm
and
a bit
it's
more.
because we've just literally changed, haven't we, on a DNA level, and that's why, again, the for me, how the to bridge that gap between the cognitive understanding, we can learn it and think it all day long. Your body keeps score. Your body keeps score, and your body is driving the things you think. Story follows state. Story follows state. The state of your nervous system will impact the story that comes out of your head. That's it.
Yeah,
I love this.
I do. I'm going to like listen back to this so many times over to take all the nuggets, Lisa. Like it's just, yeah, unbelievable and just so interesting. It really is. Shall we finish on a lighter note? Because we've been on a while now, haven't we? I'm dying to know, from a dream life perspective, Lisa, what's it like living in Paris? Tell us, give us an inspiration for living our dream life with your life in Paris.
So we've been in Paris for 2 and a bit years now. Before that, we lived in Dubai, and before that, we lived in Switzerland for 5 years. So it's 10 years next year since I left the UK. And it's so interesting because everywhere we've lived so far has been really, really different, but so many things that are similar as well. You would imagine that Switzerland and Dubai would not have a lot in common, and yet they really, really do. And so does France. So living in Paris we're in the suburbs, which is lovely because I can go to the top of my road and see the Eiffel Tower, but I can also go to the top of a different road and go and walk in the forest with my dog, which is really, really nice. I feel like I've got the best of both worlds. Living in France is not for the faint-hearted when you come to administration. But I also think that there's probably some shadow side of me that's a bit kinky for a difficult life as well. Because literally Switzerland, Dubai and Paris are just like, the admin is just ridiculous that you have to do. So, but it also is very... it's very resilience building, shall we say. It's literally like we move now to a different country and we're just like, whatever, it'll be fine. Just work your way through it, kind of thing. It took me 2 years to get my health insurance card through and stuff like that. And you just like chip along, basically. But Paris is beautiful. I like the grimy side of Paris, to be honest. Obviously you've got the picture perfect Eiffel Tower and the Louvre, and my personal favorite is actually the Museum d'Orsay, and and I also am an absolute Louis Vuitton whore and Chanel and stuff. So for me, like the bags and looking at the haute couture and blah 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 blah, that's a bit of me. That's my art, basically. But I like the grimy side of Paris, me. I like the graffiti and all of that side, going up to Montmartre and your Pigalle and around there and stuff. So yeah, but it's lovely. I don't know if we'll be here forever, but it's pretty good for the moment. I'm ready for the change of seasons. Like we're getting into the little bit of wet time, but it's beautiful that we get blue sky. So plenty of blue sky is what I can't live without. That's why I can't go back to Yorkshire.
Yeah.
I could live in Stonebridge, I can relate to that. There's a permanent cloud over the little valley that we live in.
Somebody once said, I think it was in a book somewhere, Keith told me that, I think it was like postcards from somewhere or other, it's Bill Bryson or someone, that the UK, it's like living in a Tupperware box with the lid on. It's just, obviously it's an island, isn't it? And so, you know, it's grey a lot of the time. When I moved to Switzerland, I said to my first next door neighbour, it was October, and I was like looking up at the sky, and I said, is it, I pointed at the sky, I was like, is it always like that? And he was like what? I said, blue. He was like, yeah, pretty much. No, it's lovely. We love it. So the next time you're in Paris, you have to come and have a coffee with me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, going on my goals and vision board is to do the one day in Paris with you. So
gosh.
You know,
it's going to be so much fun
next year.
Excited for somebody coming at the end of this month actually to do a full day one-to-one.
That's fantastic, isn't it? What a way to do it. What a way to do Paris.
With a dinner cruise, and yeah, we're going to have so much fun. It's going to be lovely.
Yeah, after my 30 seconds at the Louvre with the kids where they're like, we've got a picture, let's go. I'm well ready for another day.
Yeah. Oh, it's been so lovely to talk to you both this morning.
I know.
Oh, yeah, and you, Lisa. Are you like our first proper guest that isn't just like, we've had one guest so far who was a friend, really into law of attraction and a really good podcast. But yeah, you're like a proper guest.
Oh, I feel really honoured. I've popped your cherry.
You have.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
It's my absolute pleasure. All right, lovelies. Have a lovely rest of your day.
Yeah, and you. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Manifestation Pod with me, Sam Fillingham, and Louise Marshall. Please follow, subscribe, and rate our pod. Share with friends to support two ordinary mums living extraordinary lives.